Summit air. Not heaven, but a dying star's core. The gold leaf on the ancient pillars was peeling, revealing the dark, porous stone beneath that pulsed with a rhythmic, parasitic hunger. Xiao Yang stood at the center of the forbidden plaza, his black robes tattered and stained with the silver blood of celestial guardians. On his back, the Zixiao immortal sword was no longer merely humming, it was screaming, a high-pitched psychic resonance that shattered the marble tiles at his feet. Beside him, the women who had become his world stood in a formation of breathtaking, lethal beauty. The Saint Queen, her pregnancy now clearly visible beneath her shimmering white silks, held a hand to her abdomen with one hand and a jade scepter in the other. Her eyes, which had once looked down upon the world with icy disdain, were now fixed on Xiao Yang with an intensity that burned hotter than any sun. Master Feng Xuan, the Heiwan founder, and the Yaoguang saintess stood ready, their diverse spiritual auras interweaving into a multicolored tapestry of light that shielded them from the soul-draining pressure of the sky. "The seal is breaking," Yaoguang saintess whispered, her voice trembling not with fear, but with the sheer weight of the presence beyond the gate. "He is coming, Xiao Yang, the one who fed on our ancestors, the one who turned our faith into a slaughterhouse." Xiao Yang didn't look back. He tightened his grip on the Zixiao hilt, his knuckles white. "He isn't a god, Yao Guang. He's a tick, and I've spent 2 lifetimes learning how to pull him out." The sky cracked. It wasn't a sound of thunder, but the sound of glass shattering on a cosmic scale. From the rift emerged the immortal lord, a figure of blinding, artificial light, his features so perfect they were horrifying. He looked down at the group with the detached curiosity of a boy looking at ants. "The northern border rogue," the immortal lord's voice echoed directly in their minds, a cold, vibrating hum. "You have caused quite a disturbance. You have impregnated my queens, stolen my inheritances, and now you stand before my throne. Do you truly believe a single sword can stop a cycle that has existed since the dawn of Middle-earth?" "This cycle ends today," Xiao Yang retorted, his voice a low growl. He stepped forward, and with every step the purple light of his level 10 sword intent expanded, carving a path through the immortal lord's oppressive aura. "You drained my mother. You turned my home into a feeding ground. I don't care about your cycles. I only care about your head." The battle that followed was a cataclysm. The immortal lord didn't use a weapon. He manipulated the very laws of the world. With a wave of his hand, gravity reversed, and the mountains around the immortal gate began to crumble upward into the void. Xiao Yang moved like a streak of purple lightning, his speed so great he seemed to exist in 3 places at once. The Zixiao sword cut through the immortal lord's light armor, leaving trails of black essence that smoked like acid. But the immortal lord was a parasite of luck and vitality. Every time Xiao Yang struck, the lord simply drained the life force of the hidden disciples within the sect to heal himself. Seeing this, the Saint Queen stepped forward, her regal face contorted in a mask of fury. "You will not touch another soul!" she roared. She raised her scepter, and a wave of pure, maternal chi erupted from her, forming a protective barrier that severed the immortal lord's connection to the living. The effort caused her to stumble, the physical strain on her pregnant body reaching its limit. Xiao Yang was at her side in an instant, his arm sliding around her waist to support her. The physical proximity in the heat of battle was a visceral, mature moment, the scent of her jasmine perfume mixing with the ozone of his sword chi. "Stay back," he commanded, his eyes soft for a heartbeat before hardening again. "I am your queen," she whispered, leaning into him, her hand gripping his forearm. "I do not stay back. I hold the line." The Heihuan founder and Ning Shu moved in as well, their energies merging with the queen's. It was a spiritual dual cultivation on a grand scale, a mature and intimate union of powers that forced the immortal lord back. The air was thick with the scent of their shared heat, a musk of raw, divine exertion that fueled Xiao Yang's final strike. Xiao Yang leaped into the air, the Zixiao sword expanding into a pillar of purple fire that touched the edges of the atmosphere. "This is for the snow," he screamed, a reference to the cold death of his past life that only he understood. He brought the sword down in a vertical arc that split the immortal gate in 2. The immortal lord shrieked, a sound that tore at the fabric of reality, as his artificial light was consumed by Xiao Yang's pure, unyielding intent. The parasite was finally purged. The golden spires of the sect collapsed, the false divinity of Middle-earth crumbling into the dust of the mortal world. With the Lord defeated, the group didn't pause to celebrate. They headed straight for the depths of the immortal prison, a place of absolute darkness where the walls were made of soul-suppressing iron. Xiao Yang moved with a frantic desperation he hadn't shown in any battle. He reached the lowest level, a cell guarded by arrays that had stood for a century. With a single flick of his fingers, the arrays shattered. Inside, sitting on a bed of cold stone, was a woman who looked like a faded painting of Xiaoyang himself. This was the Minghua Holy Maiden. Her hair was white, her eyes dim, and her meridians were a tangled mess of broken glass. "Xiaoyang?" she whispered, her voice a ghost of a sound. Xiaoyang knelt before her, his eyes welling with tears he had suppressed through 2 lifetimes. He reached out and touched her hand. It was cold and frail. "Mother," he choked out, "I'm here. I'm taking you home." The reunion was witnessed by his wives, who stood at the entrance of the cell with solemn, respectful faces. Even the proud Saint Queen bowed her head. Xiaoyang didn't wait. He closed his eyes and unleashed a supreme divine ability, a power he had cultivated through the Nirvana rebirth pill and the ancient alchemy inheritance. The room was filled with a warm, golden radiance. Xiaoyang's qi flowed into his mother, not like a violent tide, but like a gentle spring rain. He meticulously repaired every shattered meridian, every broken bone, and every darkened corner of her dantian. It was a process of absolute intimacy, a son giving life back to the mother who had given it to him. As the color returned to her cheeks and her hair began to shimmer with its original luster, the Minghua Holy Maiden let out a long, shuddering breath. The grandmother of his children was finally whole. The transition back to the northern border was a journey of peace. Xiaoyang didn't want the gold of Middle-earth or the thrones of the immortal sect. He took his mother, his wives, and his children back to the place where it all began, Yuanwu Mountain. The mountain had been blasted apart in previous wars, but to Xiaoyang, it was home. Standing at the foot of the ruins, he flicked his finger. The earth groaned as the shattered peaks rose from the dirt, weaving back together into a magnificent soaring range. He created the Yuanwu Immortal Realm, a hidden paradise where the spiritual energy was so dense it formed clouds of liquid jade. The next 10 years were a blur of domestic bliss and mature, deep-seated romance. In the quiet of the Yuanwu Immortal Realm, away from the schemes of sex and the blood of battle, Xiaoyang lived as a man, not a god. There were afternoons spent in the hidden springs with the Saint Queen and the Yaoguang Saintess, the water warm and the air filled with the laughter of their growing children. The eki and mature elements of their lives were now a natural, beautiful extension of their love. He would sit in the gardens as Ningxu applied fragrant oils to his battle-scarred back, her touch lingering with a familiar, hungry passion. He would spar with Li Xingyao, their blades clashing in a dance of steel that always ended in a heated, breathless embrace beneath the cherry blossoms. He had become the father of a new lineage, and his pavilion was always full of the scent of jasmine, the sound of music, and the warmth of a dozen loving hearts. His mother, Minghua, watched over them all with a serene smile, finally finding the peace she had been denied. She taught the children the ancient songs of the Immortal Gate, but she taught them with a heart that was no longer burdened by the sect's cruelty. But Xiaoyang knew that this world was still a cage, however beautiful. The Celestial Gate hovered above the peak of Yuanwu Mountain, a shimmering veil that separated the mortal plane from the legendary celestial world. On a clear, crisp morning 10 years after their return, the entire family gathered at the summit. Xiaoyang stood at the front, his hair now streaked with a distinguished silver at the temples, his presence so vast that even the wind seemed to bow to him. He looked at his wives, each one a queen in her own right, their beauty only deepened by the years of peace and the joy of motherhood. He looked at his children, their eyes full of the same purple fire that burned in his own. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice a low, resonant chime. The Saint Queen stepped forward and took his left hand. The Yaoguang Saintess took his right. "With you, Xiaoyang," they said in unison, "we are always ready." Xiaoyang drew the Zixiao Immortal Sword one last time. He didn't use a technique or a form. He simply performed a single, vertical strike into the empty air. The world went white. The Celestial Gate didn't just open. It vanished, replaced by a bridge of pure, crystalline light that stretched into an infinite, more magnificent universe. The air that drifted down from the bridge was unlike anything they had ever felt. It was the air of true immortality, of a world where there were no parasites and no graves. Xiao Yang led the way. He walked onto the bridge, his mother beside him, his wives and children following in a procession of light. As they ascended, Xiao Yang looked back one last time at the northern border, at the Qingyang peaks in the distance, and at the world that had once tried to break him. He felt no more hatred. He felt no more regret. The debt was paid, the path was clear, and the future was infinite. A more magnificent world awaits, he whispered to the wind. As their figures merged with the brilliance of the celestial world, the gate slowly closed behind them. The legend of the rogue holy sun was over, and the era of the eternal sword god had begun. They had become immortals, not through the theft of life, but through the power of a love that had survived death itself. The book of his first life was closed. The epic of his eternity had just started. Behind them, the Yuanwu Mountain remained a beacon for all cultivators, a testament to the man who refused to be a tool and chose to be a king. Zhao Yang was finally, truly, free. The end.